Good morning, everyone, from QuiltNCode in Western North Carolina this morning. It is a little bit rainy on the outside, so we're going to keep it nice and warm in here. I have my coffee with me. I hope you have yours on this early Saturday morning. It's still Saturday. It's not Sunday yet. This morning, I wanted to give you guys an overview of what a long arm quilting machine can do. So we've sort of moved our space over here to our long arm. And so as you can see, it's a pretty large machine. And I'm actually going to start over here. We have a Millennium machine here at QuiltNCode, and we call her Millie. And I will refer to her as a her the whole time. Someone asked me how that name came along, and when I purchased Millie, her previous owner called her Millie, and so she just stuck. I mean, I'm not going to change the name of a machine. And then we introduced this year, we've had Millie for a few years, we introduced this year the IntelliQuilter, and so we call the IntelliQuilter Telly. I mean, how original are we? Yeah, we have, you know.
I've heard a lot worse names.
Hey, we have a cat at home. It's called Stripes because she had stripes. And so that's pretty much, we're just so original in our naming. So first thing I wanted to talk about is a little bit about what Millie and Telly can do. And so our number one thing is I'm making sure Laney doesn't trip over the wires and cords over here. Sort of switched everything around. We're both trying to not trip on cords. The biggest thing is the edge-to-edge quilting. And so what that means is that Telly and Millie go from, it's like a typewriter. They stitch from here, and then I bring them back here, and they stitch again. And you end up on the back side, you can see it better, you end up with a gorgeous overall quilting design.
It's hard to see either way.
It is hard to see, but I have a few more that'll be easier to see. And so when you bring your quilt in for quilting, you would simply pick out your design. We have a ton of them on the website, so if you're considering doing long arming with us, go to the website. On our main page, there's an entire long arm tab that tells you all our services, and it tells you, it gives you a whole page of long arm designs. All right, so this one was using an edge-to-edge bee quilt design, or bee design. And so still a little hard to see, but this one also features my variegated thread. I have a wide variety of variegated threads over there. And so you can sort of see a bee in there, and a swirl, and another bee. And this design is just a dream to stitch out. I have like 2 other quilts that are going to get this design if I ever get my own quilts onto the machine.
We have a really big stack of ones to do for the shop.
Right. But I'm getting better. I mean, I'm getting about 1 a week done, so that's good. This was a quilt made by my mom, who just walked in the door, and she is going to log in. I have you set up there on the computer. If you would log in and answer questions or say hi to folks or let me know there's people there, that would be awesome. We have, so Mom made this, what do I do? So Mom made this quilt. It is using a star pattern. And again, it is edge to edge. So let me see if I can get it up. And using the variegated threads because they're so cool.
They all blend in so well.
They do blend in really well, but I do that deliberately. I want your piecing and your quilt to show up, not my quilting. If I want my quilting to show up, then it's not my stuff. All right, so this one's a little different. We're getting into the little bit of custom. So for the most part, this was an overall stippling design, and Joe and Kippy don't know that this is on here. So I didn't warn them ahead of time. They gave me the challenge of adding in their granddaughter's name to the stitching. They just wanted something that would give that personality to it. And so they don't know, I mean, they approved everything, but they don't know how it looks yet. And so I'm going to pull this up. And Lanny, if you will come in right here, this is the best place that you can see it. I have programmed the telly to come in here and write in Jocelyn Gillespie's name. And I did that on 4 or 5 places on the quilts. You can't see them though because they blend right into everything else. And so this one is super easy to see on the back. So I will turn it, I can actually turn it to Jocelyn. Let's see if I can find Jocelyn. She's upside down and backwards, but you can sort of see how she came out on the back of the quilt.
Not supposed to see the back anyway.
No, and she's backwards on the back of the quilt.
And Gigi is here and says the quilts look great.
Aw, thanks, Gigi.
Gigi is here.
Aw, thanks, Gigi. So can you mute it, Mommy?
Yeah, I gotta find it.
So
I got it.
I'm going to stand
I
right
finally
here.
came on.
Well, you got it? Okay. That's what happens when your computer help is actually holding the camera. You know, anyway. So this was one of my first, it still has a few threads that I need to hide. But this was one of my first freehanding quilts that I was freehanding and just getting to know Millie. And so I was learning how to do cross-hatching and echoing and that type of thing. Then Telly came along. And so Telly took over. And so this one right here was my attempt early on at cross-hatching. Yeah, no. And then...
Linda Hensley says beautiful work.
Well, thank you. And then this was Telly. So you can tell the difference right away that Telly makes by being able to program that stuff in. Being able to program it in gives me the opportunity to move things around. So it makes sure they look right on the screen before I start going and doing everything. And oh my gosh, what a difference that makes. And then down here, I was able to use Telly to do I better turn her over. I think you can see it better on the other side. Nope. It blends right in. Of course it does. But I did border work. I did all sorts of stuff. And it's kind of interesting to see the transition between this one is like, I don't know this will ever go for sale or it's a baby blanket. It's going to go to a grandchild. I'm afraid. It's not going for sale. That one's been a favorite. All right, so some of you have seen the bears. If you come into the shop, we do have this kit available. But this one was another one. It's mine. Also not going for sale. Sorry.
You have to make your own.
Yep, got to make your own. I will help you. No problem. It's not a hard quilt to make. It's a lot of fun. But I did a whole bunch of different things. And this one you really can see. So if you come over here, you can see how I did flowers in the triangles. And I echoed the stars, all using Telly. And then over here, the stippling that I did in the bears, that was me. I got to have some fun doing both manual and computerized quilting in this quilt. The swirls here, I designed those and got them into the computer so that I can use them later. By designing, I mean that I saw, I got some inspiration elsewhere and then started doodling on my own, and then I programmed them into Telly. So at this point in time, they're my design because I've changed them so much. But you will see them elsewhere. I do a lot of copying. I think all of us do when we're doing our quilting. So I will hold this one up just for a second. So you can sort of see the overall effect that I was going for.
Mm-hmm.
Only a few different designs on that one. And then my last show and tell of the day before I show you guys how I put a quilt on the machine and why it's so important and how to... Oh, my mom brought in hers. That was my very first foray at using Telly. And as so, and actually, because I used blue thread, this might give you some ideas as to what Telly can do. You can definitely see some of this different stitching on here. I did a little bit of, I did all sorts of stuff on this quilt. Mom is definitely a less is more, so she kept coming in and saying, that's good, don't do any more. That's good, don't do any more. So,
Scrolling on the border.
yeah, you're fine. So, all right, so this last one I'm going to show you is a customer quilt I just completed. I seem to be getting better and better. At least I think so. Hopefully my customer will think so as well. This one, I did something different in every block, just like I did Mom's. I tried to find something that would go well with each individual design. And I designed most of it, especially the border. I got an inspiration from something I saw from another quilt and designed my own thing. And so I'm not quite sure if you can see that border. Comes down, does a little thing, and then down at the very bottom.
Yeah, it's coming through.
Oh, good. So down at the very bottom, I did like the whole family was working on how to make this corner go the other direction. And so we came up with a little Celtic thing happening down here at the bottom. The one thing I am particularly proud of, okay, so there's like 12 blocks on the quilt, and I'm particularly proud of 12 blocks, but the butterfly in the center, I think, has to be my favorite. It's hard to see. I'm going to straighten it out there. I'm going to get out of the way so there's no... Is the feathering coming through, Mom? Not quite?
Not really, huh?
Yeah, so there's feathers all in the butterfly wings.
Yeah, when you point it out, it's you can see it.
You can start seeing it if I point it out. So there's feathers in the butterfly wings, and don't forget that up here at the top, ooh, I have some strings left. That's why I haven't given it to my customer yet. She's getting it today, or she's going to be notified today. But I did antennas. And then up here, this one is also one of my favorites. I did some cross hatching in the pinwheel to sort of give it some definition. And these frames for each one of the blocks, I designed that frame out, trying to keep it simple. My customer said she didn't want too much heavy quilting, so I was trying to keep things simple so that it wasn't too heavy for her. And so hopefully she likes it. I do have to admit that down here with the tulip, oh, you have to see look at the vase. Isn't that the coolest? Yeah, look at that. I just love it. I was trying to figure out how to fill in this white space, and this was the last block. I mean, I kept going back to it going, okay, what do I do with this white space? And then I finally said, I need to stipple on it. So I love stippling, and so I'm stippling. Oh, look at the star. Sorry. Let's see what else. All right, and then come over here to my my pinwheels over here. Tried to keep, if you'll notice, I tried to keep the same thing going throughout so that there would be at least that continuity going throughout, since every single block was different. I was trying to keep a little bit of continuity going through. So anyway, that's a little bit about what Millie and Telly can do. Now let's switch gears and talk about the quilts that you guys bring to me. So when you bring me a quilt, I wanted to show you, give me just a second to pull this one off. when you guys bring me a quilt and ask me what you need to bring and how you need to bring it, I wanted to demonstrate why I ask you to bring it to me that way. Long arm quilters always ask for at least 4 or 5 inches all the way around your backing extra fabric. The reason why we do that is going to be clear in just a second. Also, when you bring me your quilt or you mail me your quilt, all I need is the top and the backing and the batting, unless I'm going to provide that stuff for you.
Janelle says she's watching and she loved what you did with her quilt.
Oh, thanks, Janelle. I did an edge to edge on Janelle's, and I am so glad you're here because I was going to plug Janelle. With Janelle's quilt, we instituted a new program where if you let us do all your quilting and you buy your backing fabric and your batting fabric from us and you let us do your binding for you, then you get 10% off your order. And so Janelle was the second customer that we had put that program in place for. If we don't do your binding, but you still get your backing and your batting with us, then we will do 5% off your order. And so keep that in mind when you're thinking about where you're going to get your batting and your backing from.
We also have a question here from Michelle Brown. How long have you been using your long arm?
Oh, so we got Millie 3.5 years ago when we opened the store. We got her because when we opened the store, we were trying to figure out whether we were going to carry machines and what type of machines we were carrying. And I was looking at the fact that within 20 minutes that way and 20 minutes that way, people were selling machines. And I'm going, I just don't know if I can compete with that up here in Western North Carolina. So while we were doing some reconnaissance down in Raleigh, I went into Carey Quilting and spoke with one of the employees in Carey Quilting. And, I said, gosh, why aren't you carrying machines? And she said, because we have these long arms. And she said to consider doing long arm quilting instead of carrying machines because that was bringing in just as much money as the long arms. And they too were having that same issue of there's a Bernina place right there and a Baby Lock place right there so she was right. Carey Quilting is right in the middle of all these stores that do machines. And so she did long arming. So we got Millie, and Millie was a great success. I was doing it all manually using pantographs, and I was not having, I do pretty good. I had about a 6-month learning curve, I will admit. Took me about 6 months, but I have such wonderful customers who come in and say, do what you want, figure it out. And so just like I think Janelle was sort of like that, just sort of said, I trust you. I'm so blessed to have customers like that. Everything's come out beautifully. And so that's how we got Millie, and that's when I started doing my own manual designs. When we got Telly,
It was January.
Yeah, and I'm
Of
still
this
on
year.
the learning curve. Primarily because she's easy to use, but designing on her is an intense process. And I want to design my own stuff. I want original work. And so I do a lot of taking the designs that are on Telly and then turning them into my own, just like I did with Jocelyn's that you saw a little bit earlier. I took that design, or I took what they asked me, and then I programmed the machine to do that. And I can sort of talk you through that. What I did, actually, I'll tell you what I did. So what I did was I found a font that I liked, that I thought would go in well with because I knew they wanted stippling design. So I found a font that I liked, and then I literally stuck it up here on the machine and put it in dot by dot. And then took it off and cleaned it up myself. And so I have all these opportunities to create and design in there. Then I had to fit Jocelyn into the stippling design. And yeah, that was another hour's worth of trying to figure out what to take out, where she would fit in the design. So as a result, I'm not so happy about the fact that I could not place her exactly where I wanted her on the quilt because I had placed her in the design. So that is my next step, is to sort of figure out how I could have made her more universal in the design. So the next time someone challenges me to put a name in a quilt, or, I mean, that same thing would work with a frog or an owl. I would have done this years ago. I did a quilt for Gil Rao, in which it was a I Spy quilt. And so in his pattern and materials, he had all sorts of different I Spy stuff. He told me what his grandson liked, trains and astronauts and rockets and all this stuff. And I found different designs and free-handed in all these awesome designs throughout the quilting. So not only does he have to find I Spy stuff in his fabrics, but he has all these wonderful things to find in the quilting as well. Oh my gosh, it turned out awesome. So this same type of what I just did with Jocelyn has now helped me figure out how I can do that with, you know, animals and rocket ships and all that stuff. I'm so excited that I took that time. And that's what I think of these custom quilts as. I am never going to get the money. Longarms never get the money that they deserve for custom quilting. But I learned it's a learning curve. I learned so much, and I designed so much in there that now I can use those designs later and it won't take me nearly as long. Okay, so when you bring me a quilt, I just literally want you to bring me the backing fabric that is 4 or 5 inches all the way around longer. So if you're bringing me a quilt that is 60 inches by 60 inches, then all the way around, I want, I need a 68-inch square on the backing. Now, if you bring me larger, then that's fine. I will take care of it. In fact, this one right here that I'm putting on is a 108-inch fabric. And Lanny, if you will span over to our 108-inch selection over here. So I'll even move our lights over here so that I can focus on that. Look at the gorgeous fabric. So these are all 108-inch fabrics. Something dinged. These are all 108-inch fabrics. And so this is a 108-inch piece. So when I was cutting for this quilt is I've forgotten already. Cut it just this morning. It is 45. So I have cut this 55 inches this way so that I have plenty of room this way. And then I know that I have plenty of room that way. And I have not squared it. I have not ironed it. I pulled it right off the bolt this morning. This is the fastest I have ever pinned a backing and gotten a backing trimmed. So you do not have to worry about that. Just make sure I have plenty of fabric to work with. The reason why I didn't have to square it is because it is straight off the bolt. And so I was able to simply fold it in half down here at the selvage to find my center. And the way I put this quilt on is to bring all my fabric. See, I get a good workout when I put a quilt on. I'm telling you, it's just like cutting. Preparing a quilt to go on the machine is the longest part of the process, unless you're doing a custom, at which point it's the shortest. So first thing I do is I pin it. And so Lanny, if you want to get up here and show how I've pinned it to this zipper, and then I zip it onto the quilt. This way, if it's like a custom, or if it's something I might need to take on and off the machine, it's pretty easy to do. All right, so, wait, come over here. I'm going to show you why I don't have to worry about ironing it. So see how I've got that nice big wrinkle in there? it's just going to come right on out when I roll this baby up. Now, if I have some serious wrinkles, like right where the crease of the quilt is, he's going to trip on one of these wires. That's going to happen. I'm sorry, honey. We're going to have to tape him down next time when we're over here at the long arm. So, if I have a crease or something in the center of the fabric, then I just take my spray bottle and spray some water on here and keep rolling it up. It just comes right on out. And so you can see how it's already straightened right out. I don't need to worry about a thing. So if you're mailing it to me, do not worry about, you know, I have wonderful customers who bring them to me on hangers and everything. It's just going on a machine, and the machine's going to take care of it. So I roll my backing up just like this. Some more wrinkles in there. And then I bring it to the top.
So 2 zippers, top and bottom.
Yep. I'm going to finish rolling her up and clamp her in place so she's nice and good and steady. So now I put on the batting. So you notice do not pin your quilts together for me. I just want the bottom and the batting and the top. That's all I want. You don't need to do any work. I'm taking care of all of it.
And if you just bring in the top, then you don't have to worry about the other stuff either.
Right. I'll take care of all of it. Literally, you just pick out your fabric and you're gone. I take care of it from there on. So next I'm going to put my batting on. Like we're supposed to, and you can see that it's been in my shop for this one I cut a few weeks ago, and so it's been sitting under my machine collecting threads.
And threads are okay as long as it's not a light colored top.
Yeah, or a light colored bottom. And I do my best to trim your threads down if you have a light colored fabric. You know, on the backs of your quilts, all those frayed threads and stuff, do your best. That is one thing that would be nice, if you would do your best to make sure you've trimmed as many of those as possible. I'll do my best to get them out of the way. But if you have a light colored fabric, it's just about impossible. The minute I start spreading things out, all of a sudden the threads, and I don't see it once I get it on the machine.
That's why you never want to use like black thread when quilting light colors.
Right. Some of my customers have learned that the hard way. All right, so I have placed my batting. Now I'm going to get my...
It's pandas.
It's the pandas.
It's the pandemic quilt.
This is Will's, the Kilted Quilter's pandemic quilt. Finally going on the machine. Let's see, the pandemic is 18 months in. That's about how long it takes for us to get our own quilts done.
Well, one square was pandemonium and the rest became pandemic.
Right, one square was pandemonium and he just kept going, so it ended up being a pandemic. Well, and the story behind that was that he was desperately trying to get the quilt done before it was no longer funny. You know, we knew the pandemic was coming, and it was like, it's going to get serious pretty soon. We've got to get this thing done so that we can make fun of this before this happens. So I have a center line on my zipper right here, and I'm lining that up with the center of my quilt. Sometimes if I have a huge quilt, like a California King, which, yeah, I have to sometimes shift those over to the left a little bit, because Telly has, in order for Telly to work, she has two robots, one that's going on the X direction and one that's going on the Y direction. And so Lainey can come over here and focus on that a little bit. So here's one of the robots that's on the X connection, and then that's the robot under there that goes on the Y. And if you'll notice, this sticks out about 5-6 inches, and so I have lost, unfortunately, 6 inches over on the side. So what used to be easy for me to do, Kings, makes it more challenging. So if you have a king quilt that you want me to do, talk to me a little bit about it before we get started, just so I can make sure I really can fit it onto Telly.
Question, Allison.
Yes.
I tried to reply to Gigi. She asked if the lint roller would remove the pins.
Loose
I tried
threads.
to reply to her.
The loose threads.
Attached.
Oh, yeah, so I'm talking about, let me see if I have a, can you find me, Mom, in the bathroom? That's where we keep, isn't that funny? We're so out of storage that we keep the extra quilts and tops in the bathroom. I'll show you, Gigi, what threads I'm talking about. So yes, for the most part, you can get rid of them with a lint roller, but some of them are fraying off of your fabrics, and so you're going to have to just snip those a little bit because they're not going to come off with a ruler. So when I get your quilts, the very first thing I do is I baste the quilt to the backing and the batting. She's gonna throw me one. Oh, she's gonna find one that she can demonstrate with, and then she'll throw it at me. So here is where you will see that I need this extra 5 inches, or 4 or 5 inches. Every quilt.
This isn't going to show because they used white thread, but here are some long threads on it.
Okay, cool. So you can see how those threads right there, if this was a white fabric and this was a black thread, that would show up in your thing. So trimming, yeah, so trimming as many of those as possible. And then you can just sort of see how this is just frayed. And so, of course, it goes to the light color. It is never going to go to the same or darker color. It always goes to the light color.
And here's some fray on this one, too.
That's like a Murphy's Law right there, man.
Yeah. Here's a dark piece that would have shown through, but that one's not attached.
Oh, yeah.
There are a few places where the white and
oh, yeah,
blue come
see?
together.
And that is actually attached. And so trimming as many of those as you possibly can. And then as I put it on the quilt or on the machine, I do things like this. I pull it over and just make sure that I don't have anything obvious. See, I already have stuff on here. It's like, I just cleaned this.
It's especially problematic when dealing with white.
Right, it's the lighter colors. I had a lot of issues with the custom quilt that I did before. One, it was on the machine for 3 weeks, and so I kept having to lift it up, make sure there was nothing underneath it, and every time I moved that quilt, I was constantly checking for threads because I was moving around so much. It wasn't so much that it was collecting from the shop, it was so much that it was every time I moved it around, the threads were shifting from the quilt itself.
Linda Smith joined us and said hi.
Hey, Linda! All right, so I have put our pandemonium quilt on, or pandemic quilt on the machine, and now I am using my clamps on either side to clamp my backing down. And this is why I need this extra space. You can see why I need the extra space at the top. I need the extra space at the top so I can pin these zippers on. On the sides, it's so that my machine doesn't run into those clamps while I'm on your quilt. I do a little bit of this to try and lift them up, so if I've got a quilt that I don't have too much space over here, I can usually get away with it. The other thing is I'm very careful over here on this side when it gets started to make sure everything's moving right before I get started. But you won't believe how much I've had to rip out because these clamps just get in the way. And so having that extra 4 to 5 inches is just essential for any quilter. If you bring me a quilt and it doesn't have it on there, you're making me have to work, because I then have to add 4 or 5 inches to each side of your fabric so I can get it on here. All right, so first thing I do is I baste 1/4 of an inch, 1/8 to 1/4 of an inch all the way around my sides. That keeps everything held in place, and it gives you, when you're binding it at home, after I'm finished with your quilt, it gives you a trimmed edge ready to go for binding, holds everything down in place for you. So it makes binding so much easier. I am able to, with my Millie, to lock things in place. I'm also able to do it with Telly, but when I'm basting, I usually use Millie to do that. And so first thing I'm going to do is just make sure that I'm at that right distance before I start stitching. And if you guys are interested in purchasing a long arm or an IntelliQuilter to go with the long arm, I highly recommend the IntelliQuilter. She's affordable and does everything you could possibly imagine. She is a learning curve, but you're gonna have a learning curve with whatever machine you get.
It also goes on just about every brand of long arm out there.
Right. And Sheridan K, that's where I was going. Sheridan K in Asheville. She's the one who's Hendersonville. Who's she comes out, she installs it, gives you, personal training for about 4 hours before she leaves you and says you are ready to go. So I do recommend, though, that you start with the basics. With Sheridan, I had been doing all my research and stuff, so I kind of figured I had the basics. Well, okay. I didn't figure I had them. I love custom quilting. That's what I want to do. That's why I got the machine. And so poor Sheridan wasn't ready for me. And as a result, I think that I sort of lost a little bit of the basics in the process because I skipped right on to the challenging stuff. Okay, so she's locked in place. I know she's good, so I'm going to go ahead and start stitching. I have pulled my thread up. I'll show you how to do that in a second because I'm going to have to do this 4 times. So now I simply go across. She's beeping because that's her stitch regulator. So if I stop, she stops. If I go fast, she goes fast. I highly recommend if you get a long arm that you have a stitch regulator. Shh. Okay, now I'm going to pull up my thread so that I can do the next thing. Oh, stop. There you go. Sometimes I'm having issues with my bobbin. So, come on. Of course I do it on the live. Of course. She's not awake yet, so she was doing this a little bit. I think sometimes I get a bad bobbin in there and I'm using the magnetic bobbins. So she gets tangled up in there. There she goes. Good grief, she really did get tangled. Come on, let me have her. Of course on the live. Of course on the live. All right, I'm going to just double check she's okay. All right. I am going to, I need to put you back in. So this is, I'm going to go ahead and take out the bobbin. This is a magnetic bobbin pre-filled. And I'm having some issues every now and then. They don't feed right. And so I have that same thing with the regular bobbins. I have a couple of bobbins that just aren't, I don't know if they're not perfectly round or something. When I get a bobbin like that, I just pull it out and I don't use it anymore.
Linda agrees with you that of course it's going to happen on a live.
Of course. All right, so I pulled my thread up there. She's working just fine now, I think. Go down. There you go. I'm gonna get this one. other side done. So you can see how when you get your machine, or when you get your quilt back from me, you have a nice edge to sew with. Poor Will up here in his border, you can tell he's sort of off. And so I'm sort of easing it in, but don't worry, I'm going to show you how I fix that. Okay, work this time. Good girl. So I have pulled up my thread, find my scissors.
Yeah, we like to talk to inanimate objects.
Oh gosh, we talk to with stuff all the time, man. Okay, so once I get this stitched in, you can sort of see I'm a little poofy there. I'm a little, you know, borders are tricky for all quilters. That's the one thing you can ask Lanny, you can ask my mom. That's the one thing I struggle with is borders. If you haven't watched my border videos, before you do another border, watch my border videos. Because when you put your borders on, you need to make sure you're not putting a 30-inch border on a 27-inch quilt. It will fit. You can make it work. But when you go to do any quilting or anything like that, your border is going to do this. And it's going to show you that it was too big to put on that quilt. So I have several, I think I have 3 now, out showing you how to put a regular border on, showing you how to put I think I did a small quilt, then I did a big quilt, and then I think I did a mitered border as well. That mitered border might not quite be out yet. We might still be editing. So I will make sure though, this week, that it gets out. Because borders are so very, very important, especially to me, your quilter. That's where I have the most problems. Is I can't even remember how to use my machine right now. All right, so next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to do my vertical line here. So I come over here and I look at it and I make sure that we're going to get in there and that we're at that 1/4 of an inch. And then I come over to the side and do the same thing. I come over here and make sure that I'm at the, ooh, look at that. Beautiful, Will. Nicely done. Okay, and then of course I come back over here. So I will start down here at the bottom and I'm going to work my way up. The reason why I do this is because Sherry Boris, when I first started quilting with the long arm, I went to Sherry and I was trying to understand why these silly borders were growing on me. It wasn't just you guys, it was also me. I admit that it was user error, and that's why I went to Sherry. And so Sherry showed me that if I go up from here, that's stabilizing my quilt versus growing my quilt. And so I was sort of growing the quilts as I went along. I don't need to do that. Y'all have already done that for me. I need to shrink the borders. And so that was invaluable advice from Sherry. And I have used several tips from other quilters. And we all, you know, quilting, as you know, is this wonderful family of women and men who share ideas and share. It's just, I don't have any original thoughts, people. I just create off of what others have created. And so does 90% of the population. I've read numerous times that there's only really 10% of the population that is true innovators. The rest of us just make it work. So I'm going to do the same thing over here. I am going to go up, move you in just a little bit. Pull up my thread. Sort of like doing your hair on one side of your body versus, you know, hair drying. It's really easy for me to hair dry and get this all nice and curly over here. It is not so easy to get it all curly. This is the same thing on a quilt. The left side for me is the harder side to line up to everything. I think it has everything to do with just, you know, that right and left side of your brain stuff. All right. Okay, come on, behave. time to change a bobbin. I hate to though, because I pre-filled. I want all that thread. Alright, so now that I have you basted, I am not going to actually quilt anything out. I will, because I told Lainey. Lainey's like, how long do you think this one's going to go? And I said, I think it's going to go 4 hours. It's not going to go 4 hours. I'm going to let y'all go. But I did want to show you how on the machine right here, I can easily, now that I have everything pulled up, I go into my machine, I hit design, sew quilt, start new, and I'm replacing. And this is all stuff that you learn as you get your machine. And if you want to know more, or if you want to be part of this process when you bring your quilt in, oh, absolutely. I would love to. As you can tell, I'm a little passionate about my machine. So I'm going to get it in here. It's 55. So she is not, my quilt's not 55. My quilt was only 45, but I want to have extra room to like fudge and play just in case that border grows just a little bit. And it does. Y'all, the whole quilt in the middle could be an inch longer than it is at the top or the bottom. And the bottom, you know, I want to go ahead and get you all quilted, and then we'll figure out how to fix that mess in the end. I've never had one that's too bad. But I want to make sure that I don't have to, if something starts shifting or something starts growing, I want to make sure I have enough in my program that I can do it. So I have no idea how long you are, so you're going to tell me.
Length doesn't really matter, as long as you're long enough.
I can make it longer with my design. I cannot make it wider. All right, so now I have this box on my screen. I can now add in designs. And so for this one, I really want a leafy design because bamboo and stuff like that. So, I don't know. Where do I want to go? I did have one in mind that I was thinking about. These are all designs that I have created or downloaded from my stash. Oh, this one's like, no, that's not the right leaf. Anyway, so you get the idea. If I were to do this, I end up with this type of thing. I can then close my gap so that you guys can see that is actually really fitting in there. So then I am going to change this because that's way too big. I can change it to be smaller. I can change it to be bigger. I can change it to do all sorts of stuff. And so that sort of gets you an idea of what's getting ready to do with this one. But I am not going to keep you all Sunday morning.
Saturday.
Saturday. Holy.
She's bound and determined to lose this day.
I know. Before we go, next week, you got to tune in because the Kilted Quilter is going to do, he is going to give us an overview of all the he is a 3-yard quilt fan. And so he keeps making me buy the new books that are out. And so a lot of the quilts that you see in the shop that he has done are from the 3-yard quilts. And so he is going to demonstrate just how easy this is to do and some of the cool stuff that he's created with the 3-yard quilt pattern.
We have 14 new 3-yard quilt fans starting, don't we? At the middle school?
We do! Oh my gosh, it's so awesome. Dawn Silver at the middle school has created an Appalachian Crafts Club. And so 14 students are going to be doing one of the quilt. I mean, she let them pick. Is she crazy or what? I'm going to help her out next month just because she decided that she may be in over her head. She told the school she could handle 8 students and ended up with 14. Is that not glorious? And she took the challenge. I am so proud of her. And then she got a grant for all the fabrics. So we're so excited to help her out with that project. Anyway, Kilted Quilter will be here next week.
And it's boys and girls too.
It is. It's like 4 boys and the rest are girls. I mean, I'm like, that is phenomenal. I'm so excited for them. And then don't forget that we are in the middle of our shop hop and it is going fabulously. We still have magazines. If you are a shop hopper tuning in this morning, we still have magazines left. If you have any questions about long arming or if you would like to see more of what I do on the long arm, please leave it in the chat or let us know so that I can plan the next session. Obviously, I'm a little passionate and would love to talk about this all day long and show off my projects. Yeah, see you next week with the,
One last thing. So
Yes.
Linda Smith also has created a new Flash quilt group that's open to everybody.
oh, awesome.
So-
Okay, so if you haven't gotten into the Flash Fiction Mystery Quilt yet, that is a block of the month created by Linda Smith and a couple of others. Sue Ellen is the other one right now. That's her cohort, and they do a block of the month every month, and now she has in that block of the month she has a separate Facebook that's super cool. I mean, everybody is so sweet, but she has also created a new Flash Fiction.
It's just Flash quilting.
It's just Flash Quilting.
And
How
that's
cool is
open to
that?
anyone.
Open to anybody. So we will put that as a link into our chat here, and Linda, we will start advertising that for you. So that because that's really cool. I think I saw it on email, and I got to get up with you anyway because we got to talk Flash Fiction. So yes, please leave me ideas as to what to do next. I know November I want to be, easy Christmas gifts, because it looks like the supply chain is going to play havoc with our Christmas, but we as quilters do not have to experience that at all. And so I will make sure you guys have everything you need to have a wonderful Christmas. And I will see you guys soon in the shop, hopefully shop hopping, or coming in just to hang out and check us out. So have a wonderful rest of your Saturday. See you next week.